Like detention centers, immigration centers, temporary holding cells, but whatever the various administrations and media outlets want to call it, we still have the terrible situation of minor children in cages and holding cells at or near our southern borders.
Democrats lambasted Trump when he was acting president for ripping young children from their parents and putting them in cages in terrible situations. And now Republicans are chiding President Biden for reversing immigration policies, creating an unmanageable surge of people seeking to enter the U.S. without any plans to manage the huge influx. Neither of these administrations has any idea how to properly address and assist people that are desperately seeking asylum, safety, and resources that they're otherwise unable to access in their home countries.
So I think you make an important point. People don't flee their homes and risk sending their children all alone into a different country unless they're in absolutely dire straits.
Exactly. In February 2021, the U.S. Border Patrol apprehended nearly 100,000 migrants at the U.S.-Mexico border. Of these, 70% were single adults, 20% families, and 10% were unaccompanied minors. That means 1,000 were children, all alone.
And I understand the need for safe and secure borders, of course, but can we please agree that the issue of young children in cages is not a partisan issue, please? Legally, these children cannot be held in a detention center longer than 3 days, but so many of them are being held for a week or longer, given the current influx and situation that we have.
And yes, this is a huge surge, but it was also predictable. Due to regulations in place under President Trump, many parents didn't come forward for their kids because they feared that they would be forced to leave the U.S. if found without papers. So when Biden announced plans to roll back these regulations, what did they think was going to happen?
So under Trump, we saw makeshift tent cities in Mexican border towns where individuals were stuck for far too long. And now under the current Biden administration, we're seeing the same Carrizo Spring facility in Texas that was closed under Trump because of substandard conditions now being reopened and housing close to 700 unaccompanied minor children.
Much of the surge in the immigration was caused by a perfect storm. So you had hurricanes in Central America in fall 2020, then the current COVID pandemic, and Central American migrants that have been stuck at the border for months, and typical seasonal migration, and an uptick in dangerous gang violence in El Salvador, Honduras, and Guatemala.
So going back to our original point, again, people don't flee their homes without a very good reason. The situation in parts of Mexico and Central America is substandard, and that's why these individuals are seeking asylum here in the United States.
And the U.S. should recognize this difficult situation, especially since we were the ones that helped create the unrest in Guatemala, for example. Guatemala's lengthy civil war from 1960 to 1996 started with a coup against the democratically elected president at the time, which was backed by the U.S. The U.S. backed the Guatemalan military, which was ultimately responsible for genocide against the native population, resulting in about 200,000 deaths. The U.S. pulled a similar act in El Salvador in the fight against communism. Even as recent as 2009, under the Obama administration, the U.S. refused to acknowledge a military coup in Honduras. See a pattern emerging?
Unfortunately, I do. We had a significant role here in the U.S. in destabilizing an entire region, and now we wonder why these exact same people are fleeing their home countries and looking to get out of the dangerous situation that we were the ones that helped to create.
Again, people don't generally flee their homes with nothing more than clothes on their backs if they're not desperate. I don't know any parent that would send their young child to cross a border alone in hopes that life will get better for them, if not desperate. The U.S. needs to take off the blinders and stop putting band-aids on the immigration crisis that we have. We need to acknowledge the role that we played and continue to play in destabilization, and then get boots on the ground to help these kids get back to safety.